Compared to many of his pro wrestling contemporaries, the man called Sting seems pretty lucky to be as healthy and active as he is, but things could have easily gone differently for the icon. Before his foray into wrestling, Sting was a bodybuilder. He had a steroid habit that he carried into his wrestling career. In a 2013 interview with Muscle and Fitness, Sting recalled how heavy his training regimen was, also admitting to his steroid usage. "I never did the powerlifting thing, but the goal was to lift heavy. On the bench, my best was 435. I was younger, and I was on the gas, too. I didn't really train for power or strength. I trained for size." He admitted his knees are arthritic after years of heavy training, but recalled totally stopping his steroid use in 1990. He said he noticed that other wrestlers were having to get their knees and hips replaced because of the bulk steroids put on, and he didn't want to go down that road. Sting noted that kicking the steroids likely extended his career, but he also said that he would probably have done things even more differently if he started today. "I'm not saying everybody who gets their knees and their hips replaced took steroids. I just noticed that the guys who did that were too big, too bulky, too heavy, and the body couldn't handle it, and it took its toll. So that was my one saving grace, but I would train differently now." Sting was one of the top wrestlers in WCW in the 1990s and at various times was the company's #1 performer. He was even dubbed the company's franchise, yet with all that success, Sting wasn't happy.
When I was at the very peak of my wrestling career, I just, something was desperately wrong.
In an article he wrote for the Players Tribune in 2022, the icon recounted just how badly his addictions had taken over his life. "I was spiritually empty. I was an addict. The only time I was sober was when I was doing my job. The other 20-some hours of the day, it was a steady diet of painkillers, muscle relaxers, and booze. It was only a matter of time before I was dead." Sting went on to explain how easy it was to access muscle relaxers at the time, how he'd use them to either pass out during plane rides or just to have a good time. He wrote that he also used alcohol to sleep. In a 2018 interview on Chasing Glory with Lillian Garcia, Sting recalled confessing both his substance abuse and infidelity to his wife at the time.
I confessed everything to my ex-wife. It was horrendous. It was one of the worst moments of my life.
In August 1998, the icon found religion and gave his life to Jesus Christ. "I was at the very peak of my career. Muscle relaxers, pain relievers, alcohol, women, a lifestyle, even language that comes out of my mouth. Everything changed radically overnight, and I was watching friends die from this kind of lifestyle over the years." Sting spent the first decade or so of his wrestling career with spiky blonde hair and colorful face paint and gear, an incarnation that would eventually be dubbed Surfer Sting. By 1996, the face paint turned black and white, and his clothes did too. This was Crow Sting, who watched his enemies in the NWO from the rafters and sometimes got involved by descending from above. The icon recreated this entrance on his last AEW Dynamite as an active performer, taking out the Young Bucks and saving Ric Flair and Darby Allin. In a 2004 interview with Wrestling Epicenter, Sting admitted these descents always scared him. It was scary, and we did it a couple of different ways, and it didn't matter which way we did it, it was always scary. Sting recalled that he practiced the entrance multiple times before he debuted it at the United Center in January 1997. The rafters were 140 feet above the ring, and the crew up there had to use walkie-talkies to communicate with those on the ground floor. He nearly backed out of the entrance, worrying that he'd botch it and ruin his career. Sting said he nearly suffered the same fate as Owen Hart, who tragically died doing a similar stunt in 1999. The rafter crew luckily realized that things were set up incorrectly. Sting recalled, "When I stepped over, we realized we had the thing set up backward, so while I was standing on the edge, we had to flip the rope around and then re-weave it through. I'm telling you, if I'd stepped over and done it, the same thing that happened to Owen would have happened to me." Until he returned to action in AEW in 2021, lots of fans believed Sting's final match was his disastrous showdown with Seth Rollins at WWE Night of Champions in 2015. Rollins delivered a buckle bomb, and Sting went totally limp, suffering a neck injury. Though Sting managed to finish the match, he was clearly badly hurt. He didn't wrestle in WWE again.
Kind of disappeared from wrestling, and I thank God for second chances.
Sting was once on the other side of that situation. At a May 1994 show in Japan, he defended the WCW International World Heavyweight title against Rick Rude. Sting hit Rude with a suicide dive that severely injured Rude's back. Like Sting more than 20 years later, Rude went on to finish the match with the injury. He even won the title, but it brought an end to his in-ring career, leading to some heat between Rude and the Stinger. Rude didn't leave wrestling, though. He would continue as an on-screen personality in WCW, WWE, and ECW, and like Sting, he had hopes of making a comeback. Sadly, while training for that return in 1999, he died at age 40 from what's called a mixed medication overdose. Sting didn't just return to wrestling in his 60s, he's gone above and beyond, performing dives, falling through tables, even jumping off a ladder. And while he seems all but invincible when he's in front of the crowd, he has admitted the bumps have had an effect. He said during the 2022 AEW Revolution media scrum,
"I have to train and do everything completely different than I did, and it takes me a lot longer to recover."
Yet that hasn't stopped him from continuing to do crowd-pleasing feats. He knows he has to be selective, though, he told D Magazine in January 2023. "It's like a potluck, picking and choosing on a daily basis what I'm able to do." With one more match to go at Revolution 2024, he's sure to end his career with a spectacle fans will remember for years to come.